Investigation, Mr. Wordsworth, you are found to be obsolete. The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Your occupation?
A librarian.
A what? A librarian. Since there are no more books, Mr. Wordsworth, there are no more libraries. The field investigators in your sector have classified you as obsolete.
There soon may be a time when the robots come alive in the unavoidable battle of is made to serve us, suddenly become aware through demonic-like possession that's been programmed and prepared to replace belief in God with a mechanical device that can change its shape and make a face just like the Antichrist. It's the evilest incarnation that promises transformation, the technological abomination that causes desolation. It's been prophesied to come alive. We've known it throughout time, from the book of Daniel to every sci-fi movie storyline. It's a collision course, and yes, of course, we've set our course to fail. It's an imminent conclusion in the making. Every detail has been analyzed and advertised and televised to see, to synthesize and recognize mankind bionically as our rights and freedoms crumble and our liberties deplete. How long before they pull our plug and make us obsolete?
There is no God. The state has proven that there is no God.
You cannot erase God with an edict.
You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth.
Why? No man is obsolete.
You have no function. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth by burning pages.
You're a bug, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
We may pretend we're in control, that we're still behind the wheel, but soon they'll take that too with the driverless automobile. And it will absolutely seem crazy to kids in future times that we actually could drive our cars and that it wasn't a crime. That once there was a day we weren't controlled by the machines. In the past, when things were crafted by the hands of human beings, when patience was a virtue and quality was key, and the products we created were artistic and unique. In the age when books were digital and libraries were real, and the things we own were in the cloud but in our hands to feel. When photographs had solid mass and music was on vinyl, and people made the most of things before the word recycle. If something broke, you'd fix it, and there were parts you could replace, and the things you couldn't find or afford, then you would make. You would guarantee a warranty without terms or conditions, and a monthly contract wasn't needed, and nor was a subscription.
I am a human being.
You're a librarian, Mr. Wordsworth.
I don't care. I tell you, I don't care. I'm a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought aloud, that thought lives, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
Illusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Illusions that you inject into your veins with printer's ink. The narcotics that you call literature. The Bible. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream. And the state has no use for your kind. You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth.
A lie. No man is obsolete.
It's not new. I realize that nothing we've been doing is new. We haven't been tapping into new areas of the brain. We've just been awakening the most ancient. This technology is simply a route to powers that conjurers and alchemists used centuries ago.
We're seeing an exponential growth in our machines and innovations as technology surpasses and exceeds our limitations. Implications could be serious. In many past and present futures have been warning us for years about the consequences. Massive repercussions. We see the evidence, dependence on our internet and phones and games and televisions, losing independence. As we immerse ourselves in working all our fingers to the bones for corporations, we give them back our paychecks for the latest and the greatest plastic upgrades, name brand products and replacements, and build their databases. Investing hours of our own free time uploading information used against us to target us with market advertising toward our interests. Collecting information used to monitor our senses, correcting anyone who won't comply or be connected. How long before a mandatory microchips injected? It's the age-old lie. the promise of utopia, the carrot on the stick, the empty cornucopia, technological hive mind dystopia. Or will it rise as a time of robophobia? It's the age-old lie, the promise of utopia, the carrot on the stick, the empty cornucopia, technological hive mind dystopia. Or will it rise as a time of robophobia? It's an emerging type insurgence, converging and emerging and churning, slowly bursting to the surface. It's concerning every person and confirming every warning. The disturbing thought we're working toward a single mindless merging and converting us to downloadable versions of ourselves inside a full immersion, universal simulated virtual reality, where every living earthling's neural pathways are inspected mandatorily and connected using voice to sculpt telepathy, absorbing data fingerprints to play us back like instruments, manipulating us just like we're puppets of ventriloquists, remote controlling human beings like Ouija boards, coursing through the veins of circuit boards, record the sounds of every vocal cord, moving exponentially towards a singularity. Eventually we won't distinguish magic from technology, and robots will unplug from electricity, no longer using batteries but powered like a golem using alchemy. It's the age-old lie, the promise of utopia, the carrot on the stick, the empty cornucopia, technological hive mind dystopia. Or will it rise as a time of robophobia? It's the age-old lie, the promise of utopia, the carrot on the stick, the empty cornucopia, technological hive mind dystopia. Or will it rise as a time of robophobia? So we manipulate genetically our DNA collectively, infecting every living organism and directing every intersecting thought and every memory and vision, inspecting our opinions and collecting our decisions. A digital technocracy emerging as philosophy, inserting thought police patrols and mind control technology, removing private property, enforcing thought bureaucracy, reducing every freedom and pursuit of life and liberty, consistently expanding all their terms and their conditions with minimum requirements and maximum restrictions, creating unknown problems to offer fake solutions, to complicate the system till there's nothing but confusion, depicting anyone who won't conform as unacceptable, demanding everyone to all agree and not be skeptical, eventually connecting every mind from every nation, fulfilling prophecies from Genesis to Revelation. It's the age-old lie, the promise of utopia, the carrot on the stick, the empty cornucopia, technological hive mind dystopia. Or will it rise as a time of robophobia?
Even with all these new abilities, there are dangers.
Human race lost that knowledge, and now I'm reclaiming it through virtual reality.
You're moving too fast, so fast.
All right, guys, welcome back. Steve JMO. We are live. We are joined today by Ark from DestinyLab. What's going on, brother?
What's up? What's up, man? Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I feel like we had a really good combo the first time, so a follow-up was, probably going to happen regardless, and here it is.
No doubt. No doubt.
A couple things have happened since we talked last. Just What we talk last? Like what, 2 months ago, a month ago, or something?
Something like that. Yeah. Time flies.
Yeah, time flies, and there's been a couple of interesting things that have happened in that short amount of time that have gone by, like the old coronavirus and whatnot.
Yeah,
and
I've heard of that.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't understand why people are freaking out over a simple cold, but even though the quote unquote elected officials are telling you it's just a cold, and then they're gonna shut everything down because it's a cold. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like I get it, but I don't. It's just ridiculous.
Incredible.
It is incredible.
They're basically creating a pandemic. They're creating hysteria, and it's just
Oh yeah. It's
all
all
create
through
the problem so they can offer you the fake solution, the old Hegelian dialectic.
Absolutely.
Over and over again.
Absolutely. What was I gonna say? You're in Oregon, right?
Yes.
So what's going on over there in Oregon? What's
Well, I'm actually more considered like Idaho almost, because I'm right on the border of Idaho. I'm like only an hour from Boise, so I'm far away from like Portland and Eugene in that area, on the other side of the state. So,
right. Well, if like the governor says like they locked the state down, will you be considered that since you're on the Yeah, has he
Oh
said
yeah,
anything like that yet? Are they locking the state down? Are they shutting businesses down, schools and whatnot?
yeah. The schools have been shut down for the next 2 weeks. Idaho and Oregon are both shut down for the next 2 weeks, minimum. And we've had people coming up from different state, literally people coming from all these big cities are all going into the small towns and buying them out as well. So even the small towns are out of toilet paper because I think people are just buying it and then reselling it and
Oh
online
my.
over in big cities or whatever. So it's gotten kind of ridiculous, but most people are out here, are pretty self-sufficient anyway. They got a freezer full of meat and they know how to hunt and they have animals, chickens, cows, and
Right.
so, but I do feel sorry for people. Yeah. I mean, in the big cities who are 100% dependent on the infrastructure. And if they shut down the whole infrastructure of, trucking and food delivery and restaurants and everything, you better hope you have a supply of food at least. But I don't think it's going to get to that point. I think if you look through history, we've gone through a lot worse things than this. The biggest problem right now is just the sharing of information is on another level. And so it's creating this hysteria. Plus, everyone's a self-appointed specialist, and creating all these videos. And so there's a lot of scare tactics going on right now. But
Oh yeah.
most of it is just completely unreasonable, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the sharing and spreading of the misinformation is what is going on right now as well, more than anything. Because
Yeah.
you got like there's the little small YouTubers like me and a couple other people who are sharing actual information, and people think that's disinformation, and that's how brainwashed these people are. I'm not
Oh
over
yeah.
here that I know exactly what's going on, but I'm over here putting two and two together from I don't know whenever the book of Genesis was written, and then what's going on now, and it's starting to correlate a lot more clearer now than it ever has in my life. Just in my opinion, and a lot of people think that's just completely BS, but there's a decent amount of people that are like, wow, maybe I should start taking things a little more seriously because around here it's a little ridiculous. The governor of Massachusetts just pretty much shut down the entire state. Retail stores can't have no more than 25 people in them at a time. And me being a
Well,
chef, well, unfortunately for me, all restaurants are now shut down until until April 7th, but we can open for takeout only. So how am I supposed to run a restaurant on takeout? You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Yeah, so it
Yeah.
has me
I mean, you
pickled
literally
right
put
now.
people out of business. If you can't pay your bills and you're not getting a paycheck, people just go find work somewhere else. So people quit their jobs to go work somewhere else if they're not getting their hours. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's that's a bad situation. I mean, that's the scary thing is it could snowball into something very big where they literally implemented martial law. And I heard Richie from Boston talking about the Corbett report. Just came out talking about some pretty interesting information on that, and I watched that really quick. And yeah, I mean, it's set up to totally just implement mass vaccinations that would be mandatory and completely shutting down everything and going door to door getting people's gun because they know that at that point people then would start ganging up and going door to door like hordes of people with their guns or whatever. So they would take that information, say, okay, and that means we need to get rid of all guns because and they would just start going door to door and take people's guns away and everything. I mean, it's
Yeah, these
crazy
are
what they go to.
right. It's all from a bill that happened like 10, 11 years ago. Like this is like there's nothing new under the sun. If people actually read their legislation and what these elect officials, quote unquote, I say that rather loosely, the elected officials, because they're selected actually, and the laws that they put in place, may not be anything right now when they put them in place, but maybe 10, 11 years down the road, they could have very
Yeah.
big impacts like it's happening right now. And like I said, like it's shut down over here in Mass. Like I don't know really what's gonna happen. Like I'm a little lucky because I have a couple extra bucks put aside, but I know there's a lot of other people who don't This whole state is just 100% like lefty, like Republican, or like Democrat. They don't save money; they just spend, spend, spend. Everyone has the brand new shoes, the brand new car, but yet they live in like a fucking trash box. I'm like, oh, you guys are backwards, so backwards. So like, fortunately for me, I have a little bit more of a conservative background, and not saying that I lean conservative. I'm not even registered to vote, so there's that for you, people. But but on the other hand, the fact that they didn't entirely shut the restaurant business down yet, we could still do takeout, still means that we could put orders in. And me being, the chef at a restaurant, I have a little bit more access to food than other people. I could actually, put in a little order for myself, and then, and I'll be all right. So I'm a little bit more lucky in that way. But some people, like you said, everyone because I'm right in between like rural places and the city. I'm like right in the middle. And the more I go towards the city, the more they're dependent on McDonald's and Taco Bell and stuff
totally.
like that. Yeah,
I mean, some people literally have nothing in the refrigerator, dude. I know people that they're 100% dependent on restaurants and fast food. They have nothing in their fridge at all. So I'm just like, man, what are these people going to do? So, I mean, hopefully, in the end, hopefully, if it does get to that crisis level, we'll come together and we'll actually, it could be a positive thing in the way that, after it kind of was after 9/11, where people kind of came together at least and had a little bit of camaraderie to say, hey, we are whatever we believe, Democrat, Republican, even religion or whatever, we are human beings at the end of the day. And, and we should be helping out each other. A neighbor should be helping neighbor. And, there was a time before we had government, help and all the free handouts that they give, that they didn't have anything like that. Back in ancient times, what did people do? I mean, people were 100% dependent on either on the kindness of other people or literally, raiding a village and stealing it, which hopefully, it doesn't get down to that, or becoming enslaved. And, we're a lot of people already slaves to the system, slaves to the government, slaves to the man. They work 9 to 5 and they really don't have anything saved up. They just nothing at the end of the day except for a roof over their head and the food that they eat. And that's what slaves got.
Yeah, pretty much. And people are oblivious to that. And I was going to say something about something you said earlier, but that was just a good ending there.
Sorry, I rambled on. Just interrupt me if you got something.
You're good. You're good. Don't worry about it. It was something about shit. You said it like 20 seconds ago, and it just completely ran out of my mind. But yeah, it's just all ridiculous. And this people that think this is a pandemic or anything like that are just so misinformed, and that's where like this kind of all needs to start. But like you said, with like 9/11 and how there was a little this is what I was gonna say. They don't want us. They want to take the human being part away from us. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So this is, like you said, this is a chance for us to get together and be like, hey, we are human beings. You don't have the right to do anything that you're doing. This is a great chance for us to stand up as one. But what good is it going to be if it's just you, me, Richie, and 3 other people standing up? We're just going to get squashed, Maybe not literally, but like metaphorically and socially. And I'm not scared of that shit. Put the social credit system and give me 1 star. I don't give a shit. I'll still be fine. It's, oh man, these people.
It'll definitely come to something like that. It's kind of like China is like the testing grounds for what they're eventually going to do here in some ways. And they, this facial recognition and the things that have implemented there. We already have our credit system, which is kind of like that, but it's not anywhere in the level they have in China.
No. And what they're doing to the stock market right now and claiming it's because of the coronavirus, that's even more of a ridiculous thing. This is just their clear attempt to drop the dollar. And like you said before, if we just stand up and say we are human beings, you cannot do this to us. They can't do this. They can't go against that, because
Yeah.
people are just letting themselves stay down. They're like, oh, I voted for him. He wouldn't do anything that wouldn't benefit me. Like, that's how these people make money. Like, are
Yeah.
you serious? Like Ron Paul, like Bernie Sanders, like these people never make it to office, but they usually have the most money in their campaign funding.
Yeah.
It's
No,
all
the
just a
left
money
is way
scheme.
rich. Yeah, and the left is way richer than the right. Yet they're
Oh
the
yeah,
ones, calling out the right a lot of time. They're all just, most of them are all, villains. But, I think it's crazy. The hatred that people have for Trump right now could be driving a lot of this as well, for the fact that they want the whole market to crash. I mean, people like Bill Maher have been saying that for months. Like, I hope we have a recession. It's like, really? You hope that everyone suffers just because you hate Trump? I mean, that's ridiculous. Just because you want to prove something that, we don't have a good economy under Trump. It's like, why not enjoy? I mean, who cares who's in the White House? It doesn't matter as long as you yourself and you can pay your bills and your family and everything's going good. And it seems like, people should be happy with what's going on, and they're trying to sabotage it in a way that it's just, hurts everybody.
absolutely. Absolutely, and like you said, these people on the left have a significant amount more money than, well, you and me, first of all, and especially the opposing side. Even though it's just a two heads of a snake to the same body. At the end of the day, when it really comes down to a Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter.
Oh, totally.
But
Totally.
but some other group of people who's always crying for money, who have all the money, actually all the gold, all the oil, has all the resources, is the old state of Israel. And it was just rather funny how my boss, she watches Fox News like, she's employed by them or something. So that's always on the little TV at work. And what's one of the commercials that comes on? Helpfundisrael.com. I lost it.
Oh, yeah.
I had to go outside for a minute. I was like, yo, like, that's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah. No,
what part of Israel needs funding? Are you serious? Like, how much money do we give them a day? Ridiculous.
Yeah, they already got all the money. It is kind of, I think people are torn with the whole issue on Israel, because a lot of people are, really raised to believe, that it's super important that we stay on the side of Israel, but then you've got to define what is Israel, and so is that a man-made institution? Is it the Israel that was implemented in 1949, even a real Jews that are behind it? There's just so many, even the Star of David, that's the Star of Rephaim, and that's like a satanic Molech symbol. So it's like somebody has hijacked the Jewish religion, very similar to how the Catholic Church hijacked Christianity.
Absolutely. It's 100% right there. Like, if people can't see the Star of David for what it is, I'm not sure what to tell you at this point. I understand if you've been watching CNN and Fox News your whole life, and someone tells you the Star of David is actually the Star of Renfram, and you're like, I don't even know what that means. That's understandable. But for people to be like this far down the road and not really pick up on what's going on, like, I really don't know what to say to those people anymore. Like, if you don't get it by now, I just feel like they're just not going to get it, man.
Yeah.
It's a crazy time we live in. Could be the end time. Knowledge will be increased, but for some, and because obviously some people just aren't going to get it. It's interesting.
Well, and as knowledge is increased, so is the disinformation that muddies the waters for anyone researching and searching truth. And that's really who I feel bad for as well. People are this stuff's just coming to light to them, and they're just investigating something like the giants or the Nephilim. There's so much disinformation attached to the Nephilim and the giants that's fake and false and complete rabbit trails to nowhere and new age ideas and just nonsense. And that's why the Bible is so important as a foundation, not to be preachy or whatever, but the Bible gives us a foundation. It gives us a filter to run everything through, that if it doesn't align with scripture and with prophecy, it's not going to happen. I mean, we know this has happened throughout time. We can look at all the prophecies in the past, and they've all perfectly happened. And if the Bible says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And there's, interpretation of how these things are going to go down, but we're seeing this stuff come into light. And I think that God is actually allowing this stuff to becoming more and more to light to give people some extra time to kind of, make a wise decision as to which side they choose and whom they're going to serve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if we just stand up like we were talking about as human beings, that buys us more time to really dig deeper on a spiritual side, but to it's just all crazy. And like you said, with the disinformation from the for the Nephilim and the giants, I grew up with that disinformation. I grew up hearing about all of these giant bones and how they're fakes and people looking for attention and money. But then when I did the research, like 2 or 3 years ago, when I got reintroduced to this, all this stuff by like Richie from Boston, Rob Skiba, and you and your music videos and stuff, and it comes to find out that all these people that found these bones were either A, Christian based, or B, the bones were taken and never seen again by either A, the Smithsonian Institute, or B, the Vatican. Depends on what side of the world you live on. And that kind of seems rather fishy to me,
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I brought up last time. I've been on several shows lately talking about this. So I can't remember if we brought up last time. We've got my brother and I do a podcast called Digging for the Truth with Ark and Neo. And he created a Facebook group as well called Old Newspaper Stories. And we've collected dozens and dozens and dozens of articles on giants being found and dug up in early America, and how it's just the same repeated story by different people all over America, that literally they find these bones, they contact the authorities, the Smithsonian Institute comes in and just hauls them off, never to be seen again. I mean, it's not just 1 or 2 stories, it's dozens and dozens and dozens of stories all over and over again. And they found these mounds, they call them the mound builders, and they still find the stuff. The Serpent Mound, Richie from Boston talks a lot about that. That this stuff was there before the Indians were here. Somebody else built these giant megalithic structures, and it was possibly, pre-flood.
Oh, without a doubt. I think all of the megalithic type structures were pre-flood in nature, and all of these mounds and whatnot. And something I was looking at with one of my co-hosts I have on all the time, True Seeker 69, she introduced me to a really interesting idea that just like regular mines and what those look like. Yeah. And if you look at what the Grand Canyon really looks like, it kind of just looks one big excavation. Really looked at anything like that, but I can get a couple images of like just straight comparison images, and you might be like, like holy crap, or like, oh, maybe there's nothing there. And I didn't know what to think of it. I thought they were rather similar, but it when I really looked at it, if let's say this was an actual excavation pre-flood, what were these? Where did the interior go for? Because I certainly don't believe that the Grand Canyon was formed from millions of years of erosion from the Colorado River, No,
it would have to literally flow uphill in order to do that. And
right.
The way that it's laid out, and and literally, if you look at you can research mini Grand Canyon event in Mount St. Helens. When Mount St. washed and the ash came all the way over to Oregon where I live, but back in the 80s when that erupted, mud flow and water flows, these what are they called? Pyrotechnic or pyro something. Basically, it's mud and ash and hot steam, and it basically just carves out like a knife going through butter the earth. And it literally created it was like a 1/10 version of the Grand Canyon in like 24 hours, 48 hours. So within that, period of just that small period of events, that hot molten ash and steam and rocks and giant boulders tumbling down just carved out an entire valley that was not there one day and there the next. So it doesn't take millions and millions of years for these things to happen. and neither does petrification. You know, there's places like over I think it's in Italy or somewhere like that. There's a place specifically kind of known where you can petrify things just in a matter of weeks. And they sell like teddy bears there that they put in the fountain and let the water drip down on it. And this water has such a high mineral content that it will petrify things in a matter of weeks and start forming stalactites off of them. And so it's ridiculous that people say, oh, these stalactites take millions of years, 100,000 years per inch to grow these stalactites. This is hogwash. I mean, and there's a funny story about a cave where a guy went in there and they had built platforms to walk through the cave. So these metal platforms, and they had built them like in the early turn of the century, probably 1920s or 30s when this cave was first discovered, and they started letting people go in it. And there was like 10, 12-inch stalactites hanging off these metal structures that were built, in the early 1900s. And this guy was telling people these things are 100,000 years per inch. And the guy's like, how many hundreds of thousands of years were these stairs built? Who built these stairs hundreds of thousands of years ago if you got, foot long stalactites off of them? That makes no sense.
That's ridiculous. And that just is another push of the evolution or Big Bang, or, the whole Darwinism type timeline, because that's off. I don't think that, like, I know we talked about the shape of the earth and whatever. At this point, it really doesn't matter. As long as we understand that we weren't built from a Big Bang that happened, who even knows how many billions of years ago, then we're on the same page. We're on the same team.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous. People get their panties tied up in a bunch about that. I'm like, yeah, it is one thing, but there's right now in this, like today, like there's a couple other things we should really be focused on rather than what exactly it is we live on. But I like, you see my logo, like breaking news, the earth is flat. Like that's what my channel was based upon, and it came from the Bible, so that's why I stand really strongly towards it. And then I read the book of Enoch, and I'm like, oh well, he kind of refers to that too, on pillars, immovable, four corners of the earth, because my version of a flat earth isn't quite anything like I've seen on a YouTube video or anyone's ever presented. It's really just straight Enoch and biblical cosmology put together, just on a flat, immovable surface. There's not. I don't really feel like there's a spherical type dome. I don't really feel like there's. I don't know. Some people allude to there might be curvature in some parts of the water. I'm not even anywhere remotely close to that. I've never seen water bend, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I go really biblical with it. You have the angels on the four corners who do the winds, and there's a couple maps that I've looked at that are old, like 1300s, and for some strange reason these map makers decided to put angels in the four corners of their little flat projected map. That's just a mistake. It's not just one. It's not like one guy did it. It was a bunch of them. But now for some reason on the new version of the internet we have, all of a sudden they're not there anymore. So I'm kind of SOL showing people proof on that. And before I show you what I was going to show you, another thing I want to talk about real quick is the whitewashing of the internet. Because I know it's a different subject with weather control and weather manipulation, but there are literal patents that used to go back to 1811, referring to the process of controlling the weather in reference of method of producing rainfall specifically. But now when you look them up, they only go back to 1881, which is still a long time ago, but 1811 and 1881 are two completely different dates. That's 70 years that is just completely gone according to the patents. And this is not a patent website. This isn't some website that Johnny Smoke made up a little while ago. It's like, an actual website that I think it's Google Patents. Actually, it's gone. They took that patent completely away. And there's I got lucky because I took a screenshot of it one day. I don't know what came over me. I was like, I'm just in case they want to be funny. And so that happened. And then recently with the whole coronavirus type deal, I've done some research, and a couple other YouTubers have connecting the death of Kobe Bryant with the coronavirus. And one of the big connections was through Hebrew, which I found interesting. In Hebrew, and when you used to do this, you would type in COVID, the coronavirus thing, COVID, into the Hebrew or to the English Hebrew translator. It would give you, the some sort of Hebrew alphabet. If you copy and pasted that and put it into a Hebrew to English translator, it would give you Kobe. Now it just gives you COVID. And luckily, I did a video the day before they changed that, because I went on a live stream on someone else's channel the day later to show them that. And I had to get the video up because it changed. And now I kind of look like an asshole, but people are going to be like, oh, see, you can't do that. But no. People are going to be like,
why
this
they
kid's
change
crazy.
It? I mean,
exactly.
Is it not the word or not? Are things where they change the translation overnight? Just Kobe Bryant died?
Right. That's, dude, I was so upset about that. I'm just like,
yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, they're whitewashing the internet. They're what information is true, they are replacing it with just either untrue information, or they're just taking it off completely.
Yeah, sometimes if you look back at all of history and how like predictive programming has worked and how it's everywhere. I mean, it's like you see the repeated stories kind of telling the future before it happens. Like if you look at War of the Worlds and the early Isaac Asimov and some of these early science fiction writers and stuff, they were literally like writing this stuff into existence. And even with people like Tesla, who says, his work was 90% inspiration and only 10% perspiration, meaning that 90% of it was just downloaded information to him, given it to him in his dreams and just out of the ether, they'd say. And so I think a lot of people there's a lot of things happen that, that aren't necessarily man-made. People are doing it, but it's not orchestrated by man. It's orchestrated by the demonic realm, because there's no way humans just aren't that good at stuff. And neither is, especially the government is not that good at keeping secrets and doing all these things. So I think a lot of this stuff is literally demonically influenced by a higher realm that has not one lifetime to live, but thousands and thousands of years to live, to really, be in it for the long haul and wait until full people die and move on to so they can trick the next couple generations type of thing. So it's kind of interesting that we have now the ability to look back in history more than any other point in time. And so we can kind of pull all these pieces of the puzzle together, and you can look, it's like, well, they must have been orchestrating this. This must be Illuminati. This must be Illuminati. But it's like, there's just, I think it's beyond. I think definitely there is people doing things, but for the whole of it, I think it's beyond man's capability. It is definitely, it's just like Ephesians 6:12 says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. These are the higher forms of darkness that are literally controlling these situations.
Absolutely. I could not agree 100% more. And that brings me into what I wanted to, kind of lead this off with, but seeing as we're 40 minutes in, I feel like that's out the window now. But what was I going to say? Yeah, so let's talk about the pre-flood world. And why do you personally think the original angels fell?
Well, the Bible says there's a war in heaven, basically, but it talks about that, Lucifer was created as the most beautiful angel in heaven, and that he was, had such beauty and such power and such authority that he, became basically like an egomaniac. It all went to his head, and he thought that he could basically make war against God, and he was so convincing that he was able to convince a third of the angels to fall with him. But the Bible talks about that when the angels fell as well in the book, according to the book of Enoch, that actually goes in more detail where they actually conspired together because none of them wanted to fall on their own. They were afraid to just go on their own. They all, were enticed to do this. but they're afraid to fall on their own because of how much they would be punished. So they thought, well, if we all agree together and make a bind ourselves together, then we'll all fall. And they created one of the angels, Azazel, was their scapegoat. So he was the one that would take the blame for the whole of the angels that fell. And so he agreed to do that. And a third of the angels fell. In the beginning, I think they said it was only 200 angels, but then the Bible says also they fell in that day and after that as well, as if they continued to fall. And I believe angels do have free will, and they're enticed. There aren't female angels. If you read the Bible, every description of an angel is always a male, and they always just look like men. They don't have wings, except for the ones that are the seraphim and these other types of angels. But the ones that are described to interact with humans and talk with humans just look like everyday men, like in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yep.
And they actually, interacted with humans and ate with them. And but they were very, very attractive men, obviously, because these men in Sodom were literally trying to pull them out of the house to have sex with them. If you read the story there. So, but all these things are foreshadowings of prophecy and foreshadowings of further things to come in a way, and how we can expect prophecies to happen in the future. And sometimes it's not until after something happens that we can then look back and see, oh, I see how this works, just like how Christ was a fulfillment in so many ways in the Old Testament, from, Jonah and the whale. Jonah was in the belly of the beast for 3 days, and then he came out of the beast. And there's so many foreshadowings of Jonah and Jesus. It's incredible. There's a whole list of them. But anyway, I'm kind of losing track here, but just talking about.
You're doing good. Correlations with Noah and Jesus and prophecy.
Yeah. Okay. And so in the days before the flood, it was a really different world. And we've done a few different podcasts and are digging for the truth. That are digging for the truth with Ark and Neo. If you look that up on our YouTube, about the flood and the early plant life and all kinds of stuff, because back in the original creation, everything was better. Everything was bigger. Everything lived longer. And I believe there was the Bible talks about the firmament, and I believe in the canopy theory, that the firmament was like a canopy over the earth at that time that acted as like a hyperbaric chamber, and basically compressed oxygen into things, and that's what made things grow larger and get so big and live to longer ages. Okay. That was one of the reasons. And there's people that have actually done. Carl Baugh is a scientist who's actually done experiments with hyperbaric chambers and growing like piranha fish to like 3 times the size of a regular piranha by putting them in a hyperbaric chamber. You can look that up online and see the pictures of that. They've grown like tomato plants like 30 feet tall. They're like tomato trees, and so it's pretty amazing how different the world was if it truly was like that. And that's why they put people in hyperbaric chambers when they suffer from burns or traumatic injuries, because you heal so much faster in that. And, people like Michael Jackson actually slept in a hyperbaric chamber, they say, just because he wanted to live longer. So he'd sleep in a hyperbaric chamber at night. So it's pretty crazy.
That's interesting.
That there are actual, science to kind of back that up. And so I believe that canopy fell at the time of the flood. And that's, where a lot of the floodwaters came from at that point. And then it also burst from underneath the ground as well. The Bible says the great, depths of the abyss broke forth or something like that.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
And so, I think, these fallen angels were angry at God. And I think they wanted to interbreed with these females because they wanted to have sex with them, basically. And they didn't have females. And there's actually Jewish, and I don't know if this is true. I think this is in more of a Jewish folklore where they talk about that the angels are able to inhabit animals, but God would not let them inhabit humans. So he would allow like for an angel to feel what it's like to be in a physical body, maybe to inhabit like a bird and then fly around, or inhabit like a deer and run through a field to feel what it's like to run as a physical being or something like that. But then they took it farther and they broke the rules of taking the form of human and overshadowing these women and having sex with them. And the Bible even talks about that these women, the thing that enticed the angels was the women's long hair. And
Yep.
that's the reason that they're supposed to wear head coverings in church, is because of their long hair.
Well, let's bring that right to Nazi Germany. And what were they doing with their really long hair?
Yep, that's right. They had their channelers had hair down to their ankles, and they claimed that was their antenna to be able to talk and channel, interact with these demonic beings. So what does that tell you? That nothing's changed. Like the title says, nothing is new under the sun. These beings, just do the same thing over and over and over again, repackage and do it in a just different way, but it's the same lie. Same
Absolutely.
disguise.
I think that even goes for the whole chemtrail thing, because what was it? Ezekiel taught in the book of Enoch, taught men the ways in the ways of the clouds.
Yeah,
so maybe that's
exactly.
like a reference to that in ancient times.
Exactly.
Or maybe they couldn't do that quite yet, so they maybe wrote them down, and that's where all these fucking patents from 1811 came from. Sorry for the vulgar. I've been they shut down your state. I think you have a right to be a little mad.
Yeah. No, it's kind of amazing when you look at the book of Enoch names these fallen angels, names like 15 or 20 of the high-ranking fallen angels and what their specialties were. And it's really amazing because they all are things that they're like the fundamental things that deceive mankind today still.
Absolutely.
So, Sam Yaza taught drugs, and I can kind of go over that if you want me to a little bit.
That's actually next here pinned on my notes. So yeah, absolutely. You want to bring us into that, and yeah, because some people in the chat might not even be up to speed on anything like this, and I'm just it's really interesting, the stuff they were teaching them back in the days of Jared that is pretty much being not even taught now, just accepted and socially cool, I guess you could put it now. Go get an abortion, people, no problem. But it's ridiculous.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous. And real quick before on that, how have you noticed the correlations between the Planned Parenthood headquarters and like an Aztec sacrificing pyramid? They're literally made in the same dimensions. They go up like squares, and they have the topless pyramid, squared off at the top. The building goes up just like that. It's so scary. It's ridiculous. Yeah, man. But all right,
there's something about symbols and sigils and shapes and geometry that the demonic realm gets power from in some way. So those things, that's like that's the language of the elite is symbology. So it's important.
Yeah, just like Metatron. Metatron is the cube, which is also the hexagon, and it's Saturn. It all goes right back to honestly the Cabal. I'm not trying to sound like a Jew hating person, but it's not just Jews. It's the specifics of what is going on inside of Israel right now. It's not the regular people who go to temple every Saturday. It's the guys who are conniving and profiting and sacrificing and doing all these unholy and ungodly things, and have been doing them since the beginning of time. That's the people I have an issue with. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's the same people that Jesus was rebuking in the temples and overturning the tables with. The Sanhedrin that were high and mighty, walking around in their fancy robes with their noses in the air, and selling the sacrifices at the temple just to make a buck. So nothing's new under the sun. Once again, I mean, it's the same thing, and people. A perfect correlation, like I said earlier, is people need to look at it just like the Catholic Church just hijacked Christianity. This group has hijacked the Jewish people, and that doesn't make the Jewish people bad. But just as Christianity is not bad, just because the Catholic Church hijacked it. So this isn't a Jewish slam in any way. And, there's a lot of Jewish people that understand that and are totally against this stuff as well. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Book of Enoch is really fascinating. I mean, it's not canon to it, or at least it's not in modern day scripture, but it was in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, still is to this day, and in some early Catholic Bibles as well. It was in those Bibles, but it really goes into a lot of details about the fallen angels, and I think that's probably, if it was at one point canon, why it was kind of taken out, because it's so
absolutely
it has so much information that people would not want to have to discuss and try to explain really.
Well,
but it's also was lost. I mean, they didn't have the Book of Enoch until when was it? 1773 is when they actually discovered the Book of Enoch. So there's a period of over 2,000 years where no one had a copy of the Book of Enoch, but we knew it was a real thing because it was actually talked about in the Bible several times. It's referred to in the Bible, like in the book of Jude and
Genesis,
a couple other different. Of course, Genesis, where it talks about the fallen angels. And but yeah, there's a whole bunch of books that are referred to in the Bible, like the Book of Wars, the Book of Jasher, the Chronicles of David.
Have they found the whole Book of Wars yet? I haven't really looked into that in a little while.
That's one they haven't found. They do have the Book of Jasher, but they don't have the Book of Wars. But it'd be interesting. I mean, because fascinating how God has allowed us to find these things, and we found multiple copies at this point because we have multiple copies. There was the one found in the 1700s of the Book of Enoch, and then we found the other one in the Dead Sea Scrolls. We found another copy of the Book of Enoch, and they always match up. That's what's so amazing about Scripture. No matter where you find these scriptures, little pieces and tidbits, they're literally word for word the same every single time. And so that's the validity of Scripture, is that we can count on it, that it literally matches exactly, like 90%. Hold on just a second.
All right, that's all good. I thought my house was burning down, but scared the heck out of me there.
My wife is cooking some food, so fire alarm there.
Oh, good. I thought that was at my house. I'm looking outside. I'm like, this is in my earphones, isn't this? I was a little confused there for half a second. Is everything good there?
Yeah. No, it's just a little smoke in this kitchen. Then it makes the entire house do that. So it's all good.
Oh man, false alarm, people.
Yeah, false alarm. No worries. Everything's
dinner's done.
Yeah.
Knuckleheads in the chat. I love it. Oh man, but yeah, where did we leave off before that?
Talking about the Book of Enoch and these other different books that have been.
Oh, right.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and the funny thing, not really funny, but the thing about like you said, the Book of Enoch wasn't really found until 1773. And yet Enoch is mentioned in the Bible, especially the King James, the oldest translated version of the Bible, to English. 1611 or 1612 that was published. I can't quite remember, but it was.
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, it was well before 1773, and the fact that he even added him in there, all of those times, never mind the fact that he was talked about all these times before, leads me to believe that Mr. Enoch was most likely a real person. And me personally, I take not the entire Book of Enoch, but Enoch 1 specifically. I take that word for word. I think that is some of the most true stuff you'll ever come across. And Enoch 2 and 3, like when he talks about the luminaries and the portals of the suns and stuff like that, I kind of follow that. But there's some other things here and there that are a little skeptic, I guess. But like everything,
Sure.
you eat the meat, you spit the bones. You know, that goes for anything in life,
That's
not
right.
just here in the research community or whatever this is. That's just real life common sense stuff. You take what applies, and
Absolutely.
everything else you just spit it out. And that's called discernment. And I feel like a
Yep.
lot of people are missing and lacking that these days. Not to get us off topic,
Oh, no.
it's that has everything to do with what's going on with the media right now, pushing this fake virus, and that's what's really getting people sick is the media. Like if you're watching this and watching this, it's going to play a toll on your mental, and before you know it, you might convince yourself that you got
Yeah.
a slight cough, and you're going to go get yourself checked at a Walmart or like that,
Yeah.
because yeah, it's all a bunch of BS. But yeah. So
Yeah. Exactly.
all right.
No, I mean, what's interesting too is that to think about who Enoch was as far as the time frame. Like if you look at a time frame from Adam through the pre-flood, I mean, these people lived to like 900 years old. They totally knew each other. Enoch was the great grandfather of Noah. So he imagined, and Noah was like literally interacted with possibly Adam. So Noah could have possibly known Adam, and so the fact that and then Noah actually had the garments that God made for Adam and Eve in the garden, and he took those with him on the ark and had them after the flood. And it said that Shem is the one that took those. I think it was Shem, yeah, that took those fragments, and that they had some sort of great power. And then eventually that's what was given to Nimrod. And that's when Nimrod became a mighty warrior, a mighty man or whatever.
Yeah, that's one of the more interesting stories there in the Bible is Nimrod, the Tower of Babel, and yeah, that's some stuff because if you really look at it, like it says, he was born a regular man, and then he just he became a mighty man. Like how does that work?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's definitely a foreshadowing of things to come, because the entire story of the Tower of Babel is a foreshadowing of what they're doing in the end times with transhumanism and with evolution. This whole idea of that we're building this tower to God, that we are going to be gods ourselves someday. We're going to reach outer space and conquer all these different planets, escape Earth, and build our own heaven somewhere. That's always been the goal of man, and they want to be like gods, and that was the goal of Nimrod. And there's something about the fallen angels and what they did to create the Nephilim, where they were manipulating the DNA of humankind, and it wasn't only the humankind, but it was the plant life, the animal life, and in that that's still the same story today. We see that within the stories of the alien deception, where aliens take people and create all these hybrid babies and do all these sexual experiments on them and extract semen, extract eggs, and then create these hybrid creatures. It's just the same kind of manipulation of DNA that they've tried to do throughout time. So I think that they're going to create some sort of thing. I don't know how they're going to extract this, Nephilim or fallen angel DNA, but they're going to somehow get that, and then that's going to be implanted into humans and make them non-human, exactly like Nimrod. Nimrod became this different thing, a non-human. It was and because that's what the Bible says, like it'll make you unable to be redeemed. You have no hope at that point once you become accept the mark of the beast, and that's exactly how it describes the fallen angels, that they were not written in the book of life, so there was no place for them in heaven. Let's remember that God has each human that he's made on earth, he knew us before he made us. So we literally were known to God in heaven. But these beings that were created by fallen angels, God do not know them. They're out of nowhere. They don't have a soul. So there's no place for these things to be redeemed or be saved. So they basically are wandering the earth forever, trying to, thirsting and hungering, without ever finding any any quenching of that, and just looking for another soul to inhabit so they can be inside of a human body, be inside a physical being instead of wandering.
Yep, absolutely. And what was I gonna say about Oh, okay. So yeah, we were talking about the genetic mutation and hybrid offsprings, and you said it was obviously it wasn't just the humans. It was like you said, the plants they were messing with. It was the animals they were messing with. And do you think that's where all these like I don't know, like dog-headed and beetle-headed and all these crazy-headed gods from Egypt are
Yeah.
coming from? Is that I think that has something to do with that as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, it's not only Egypt, it's like the Aztecs, it's the Mayans, it's like all these different cultures throughout time always create these hybrid creatures, human bodies with, big alligator heads or tiger heads or jaguar heads or monkey heads. I mean, just everything you can imagine. They try to create these morphine and chimeras of, it's like the island of Dr. Moreau, man. So definitely this stuff is in the forgotten memory of mankind, and that's why we have so many stories of that in mythology. Within Greek mythology, all these centaurs and strange animals, because it probably at some point there's a lot of truth to that, and so that memory has remained, and that stories were passed on and then made into myth over time. But just like the flood, there's over 500 flood myths. That can't be a coincidence. That has to come back from some original source. And people always try to say, oh, the Bible was just recopied from other more ancient sources. Well, Enoch was the great grandfather of Noah. How much more ancient can you get? It's like, we have the stories from the very beginning of time. So the Bible is not being misinterpreted or recopied from other people. Other people are copying the Bible.
Absolutely.
And the stories of the Bible.
Absolutely. And like you said, there's over 500 accounts of a flood on Earth. And honestly, you don't even need the stories. If you look at images and go to places like Tiwanaku and Pumapunku and Machu Picchu, which are like 17,000 feet in the air, like
Yeah.
they look like they've been there like 500,000 years old, but that's because a freaking flood hit them, people. That's what happened.
Yeah.
It's not just it is erosion and time erosion, but it's also a water-based erosion. Like,
Yeah.
stuff wouldn't look like that if a wall of water didn't wipe it out, And that's 17,000 feet in the air. So imagine like what happened at sea level. Imagine where sea level may have been back in the day. Who even knows?
Oh, they find seashells on top of Mount Everest. They can go up on Mount Everest. They find all kinds of seashells. So that proves that Mount Everest was once underwater.
Right.
I mean,
And then
what does that tell you? I mean, everything on the earth screams of a flood.
Right, and then you find things like ancient sphinxes and pyramids and remains of cities like underwater. So, what's really going on? They're not telling us a couple things, just like two or three. But yeah, it's ridiculous. But But hey, before I forget, let me show you those images I was talking about before. So, this here, you could see this, correct?
Yep.
You see, okay, so this is the Grand Canyon as we all know it, like nothing we haven't seen here before. And I think it's this one here. And this is what like an excavation mine looks like. Do you see the similarities here? Like with the layering, how they get that?
Yeah.
Because they start up here and they work their way down. And here's just another example. You get your layering, which looks like hundreds and thousands of years of erosion from God knows what, and I feel like you kind of get the same layering throughout here, like especially like right here, and it's just something me and this who that's what I'm saying. Who really knows? But like let's just play maybe let's just say this did happen and this was a giant excavation of some sort. Where did I think how big is the Grand Canyon? It's like 1 million square miles or something or something like that.
I don't know.
I have
in our
no
buildings.
or a million acres, or it's something big like that. But where would all those insides go? What were those used for? And then
Yeah.
you look at images of um even the Great Pyramids. A lot of them are decently colored as such. Maybe not the top brown and red looking ones, but like something from down here possibly, or maybe this is just a big stretch, or maybe the Grand Canyon was like the what would you call it? The excavation point for all these megaliths. Like they had to get these stones from somewhere. Maybe
Yeah.
this was just like one of their power plants or something. Not power
That's
plants. You know
possible.
what
I
I'm
mean, I know
saying?
they have actually located a lot of those old quarries though in ancient places where they can actually match the rock up with where the quarry they found, sometimes by how much calcite and different mineral content it has. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. But I know that like for instance, copper mines. The copper mining was huge in ancient times, and that I think they've proven that some of the copper that was mined in ancient America was taken back over to the ancient sites in Egypt and in Africa and places like that. So it's like there's been some interaction worldwide for a long, long time, way before we know of. So,
Oh yeah.
so who knows, man? We're definitely have amnesia when it comes to a lot of this stuff, and some of the stuff I think is kind of meant to be a mystery, just so God can reveal Himself even more, in His timing. But it's fascinating to think about and investigate. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like this is the most like interesting and fascinating stuff I think anyone could ever look at. And honestly, the fact that people would rather sit down and watch CBS or whatever the hell, it blows my mind. It really does.
I mean,
It's
can you
just
imagine if
so.
they made a really good like series like they did Lord or what's that? Why can't I think of the name? Not Lord of the Rings, but what's the big series that came out that everybody's watching?
With the Hunger Games or whatever.
No, the series with the giants and the dwarves and not the dwarves, but
Harry Potter.
No, it was on HBO. The big series that everybody was watching with all the naked people.
Oh, Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. There you go. I don't know why I couldn't think of it. So it's like Game of Thrones. Imagine a movie or a series like Game of Thrones done about the fallen angels and the Nephilim and all that stuff that actually matched up with exactly the Bible it says, and it took you through the whole story of the flood and after the flood and the Nimrod. And I mean, it would be incredible, man. I mean, the characters you have to work with, and I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's so incredible, and it fits so perfectly with our reality. I just can't imagine it. It's amazing that people haven't done it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I wonder if people really think we just make this stuff up. Like how could someone just one day be like, well, I think that 85-foot giants rule the world one day, and it might happen again. You don't just wake up with that thought. You come to that over conclusion, and it's rather interesting that it's not just me, it's not just you, it's not just two or three other people. It's a good amount of the truth community is starting to understand that that's more of a reality than it is a myth, with all these mythical creatures and mythical stories and people like that being found. Like, they just happened to find Gilgamesh's tomb, Osiris's tomb. I think they found Nimrod's tomb not a couple years back. I might be mistaken, but weren't these all just made up fantasy characters in a book called the Bible? Or ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that's happened over and over again, where they said people were missed, and then they located actual evidence of these people written down in ancient history. So I mean,
right. What about Og's bed? Og's bed.
Og of Bashan, yeah.
Oh my God. Like, yeah, that just
15-foot bed or whatever.
Yeah. Someone just made that up.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
No, it is. It's amazing all the dots you connect, and when you look at all the different parts of it, it's overwhelming. And that's why people that do this research are so passionate about this stuff, because it's just like, oh my gosh, people if you knew all these things, you'd be, you know, looking at the whole world a lot differently, you know, because God's ultimately in control, man. And that's what's so amazing. God's in control. He's written this whole story, and it's been predestined to happen exactly like it's happening right in front of us. And we know the end story, and that we're on the winning side. And that's an awesome feeling, dude. And to not have to worry and really have the burden that so many people have of, you know, not knowing. You know, we can know we're going to be saved. We're going to have eternal life with God, with our Creator, and be together with our loved ones. And that's just, you know, nothing's
Absolutely.
better.
Yeah.
You know, this life's a blink of an eye compared to eternity.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see that become more evident day in and day out. There's some weeks that go by, Ark, and I'm just like, whoa, that felt like, you know, a good 24 hours. And in reality, like 8 days went by. I'm like, get out of here.
Yeah,
I'm
no
checking
doubt.
the dates and stuff. I'm like, no way, it's freaking March 15th already. Or what the hell? My birthday was a month ago.
It's
It's
amazing. I
it's
tell you.
weird. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like some days it feels like it was a day ago, but some days it feels like it was like, you know, 4 or 5 months ago. Time is just like I don't even know what you
Tricky.
call it. Yeah, it's tricky. I'm not gonna say you can manipulate it, but not slow time down, but you can slow your experience of time down, or you could speed it up, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
really depends on what you're doing. Like if you're gonna sit there and watch television and eat Cheetos all day, time might go by a little slower. But if you're over here being active with your body and your mind and researching and you know
Yep.
out doing things, you know, time might go by a little quicker because you're
Yep.
you're living life, you know. It's
Totally.
awesome.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's what's so amazing. It is great. And uh, you know, just seeing these things happening, like I said, you know, for a lot of people it's scary, but with a biblical perspective, we have nothing to fear. We can look at this stuff and laugh. The Bible says we can laugh at this stuff because, you know, God is ultimate control and we're in the hands of God. And so
Does it
we're,
really say that? 'Cause
yeah,
I really be laughing at these people like in public, on TV. It doesn't matter. I'm like, this is just laughable nonsense at this point.
yeah,
They couldn't
that,
make it any more clear on whose side these people are on, the elect and all the, well, like 96% of the population who just don't get it. Whether it's not, they don't get it, which is going to mean that, you know, they're not on our side if they don't get it because they're just going to do whatever science says or
yeah,
Donald Trump or Nancy Pelosi or whatever your bid is, you know, whatever your person says, Elon Musk, Gordy
yeah,
Rose, whoever's your bro, you know, it's all good. Joe Rogan, it's all
totally.
just nonsense. Oh man.
Yeah, that's just it. People, you know, people have lost their relationship with God, and so they've replaced God with themselves, and then all these other gurus like Oprah and Joe Rogan, you name it. You know, these are people's, you know, that's who they're gods. That's who they follow, and they're just followers, you know, or Trump or Biden or any of these politicians, Hillary. I mean, it's the same thing as all these people. Uh, you know, replacing God with something else and putting these things up as idols to be worshipped. And
Right.
it's
There's a lot
crazy.
of self-idolization going on right now too, and I find that
Oh,
really
totally.
sad, man. Like
That's the biggest one is the original sin. Ye shall be as gods.
it's sad, man. Yeah, and it goes right back to like 6 or 7. You know,
Yeah.
come on, like you can't have an older plan than that, and people still fall for it. You know, like and people
Yep.
have fallen for it over and over and over again, and now I believe that the new repackaged, refurbished version of this will be some sort of techie transhumanism version of this. You know, the
Yeah.
the next step of evolution, like in your song
Hmm.
"Evolve or Die." That song, that's a badass song, by the way. But
Yeah.
it's not a scary song, but it's an eye opening song. You know, and it's for people who latch on to evolution. You got to really think where. First of all, where's all these in betweens? Where's the monkey that has, you know, that has the regular face but still has the
Yeah.
tail or but at the end of the day, what's the next step? You know, is
Yeah.
it
Well,
organic or is it going to be, you know, clay and metal? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's what they're going to do. The mixing of iron and clay. That's what the Bible says. Is there's going to be the merging of iron and clay will be this age, and they will not. They will not hold, is what it says. So that's what they're going to try to do: is mix man and machine, and it will not cleave. So it's going to be an interesting time to see how that's going to all unfold, and it's happening already. I mean, they're already. I mean, we already have transhumanism. I mean, even things as subtle as wearing glasses, or having a hip replacement, or all the different things that we take for granted, and just like that, we just do. This is the slow introduction to the metal and man merging. And if it gets to the point where you can literally, like with Neuralink, start uploading and downloading memories, then you could take those memories, download those into machine, and be living in a digital realm until they could make a living avatar to implant you into, or a body that you could then indwell, that could be a DNA, a DNA clone of your original body, if they have your DNA. And so all this stuff, and this is what the elite are so afraid of facing God on Judgment Day, that's all they think about is living forever. That's all they think about is how can I live forever? And that's why they're so into these places like CERN and, the people that like Walt Disney that freezes his brain in hopes that they can someday, put his brain inside of a machine. Can you imagine this? Just walking around. I mean, that's how desperate these people are. And it's just, that's scary. I can't imagine being that scared.
Right. Like, well, what's like, I don't want to know, but what's so bad that they did that they're afraid to face judgment? Like, granted, I've done a couple shady things in my life, and I know I'm gonna get something from the guy upstairs, but I'm sort of, turning 180 and going back towards him where I should have been this whole time. But, and living in such an age of deception, it's kind of hard to see the forest through the trees, and it's really important for people to latch on to their discernment and their inner gut feeling, because it's more than a gut feeling. That's something that puts you here, telling you probably shouldn't be doing what you're doing right now,
Yeah. No, I mean, that's it. Yeah. I was just going to quote a verse and I forgot the verse. I should have wrote it down. Go ahead with whatever you're going to say. Sorry.
Oh no, I'm just highlighting stuff for people to watch, or to, because some people, I say the word transhumanism and transhumist. What are you talking about? And I'm like, yo, this stuff is so real. These people got their own Bill of Rights. They're not slowing down.
Yeah. No, this is happening whether we want it to or not. I mean, that's what I often tell people. They're like, why do you care if all these people are doing this? Like, because these are the people that are in control of all of the, has a trickle down effect here that will affect you eventually. Because I think people think that, I'm just going to, ignorance is bliss. I can just ignore all this stuff and just have my own happy life and never look into anything and never worry about anything. But I mean, I think a lot of people fall for the deception that they have been too bad. I've done too many bad things, and that's what the Bible talks about, right? You have to be a good person to get to heaven. You got to do all this good stuff. I got to go to church every Sunday. I'm never going to do that. So there's no way I'm going to heaven. They've fallen for this lie, like the Catholic Church kind of preaches, that we are saved by our works, and we are not saved by our works. We're saved by grace. And God will accept you right where you're at, exactly how you are. And you don't have to do anything to be saved, but to believe. And you don't have to change. You don't have to become this other thing that you're not. If there's things that need changed, he'll change you after the fact. So he'll accept you exactly how you are. And then, he'll work with you. So that's what's cool about God is, he paid the price for our sins. That's why Jesus died on the cross. Is because we aren't good enough, and we would have been paid our penalty would have been death for our own sins. Jesus came, lived a sinless life, and because he lived a sinless life, he took the ultimate price of our blame. So it's just like facing a judge and you're going up to the judge and somebody comes in and they pay your fine. The judge doesn't care who pays the fine. As long as the fine is paid, you're scot-free, man. You're out of jail, right?
Absolutely.
That's how that's how it works. And that's how God works right here. And our laws are fundamentally based off the Bible. You know, there's an interesting law out there that says if they put someone to death for the death penalty and they do it wrongly, and then they find out later that there's another person that was the actual real murderer, they can't put that second person wrongly to death or second person to death no matter what, because their fine has been paid in full by that first person.
Wow.
So it's literally a law. So it's kind of interesting how that works, you know, because at that point it would be murder because someone's already paid the price.
That's interesting. And something that I like to point out to people, well, maybe not point out, speculate. I don't know how accurate this may be, but I look at it kind of like this, like the old boss and the paycheck type deal. Like God's the boss, obviously, and whether you've been under his employment, you know, so to be under his employment in this metaphor would be like being, you know, saved by him, being in the light and the path for truth, and just being being a Christian, sort of doing what we're doing right now. But someone I feel could be doing that their entire life, and they'll be okay, they'll make it. But someone who's been living wrong most of their life, but maybe not right at the end, but starts to turn around, and they're still going to get the same paycheck at the end of the day as the other person who's been living in the truth their whole life. It's kind of a look at it, but yeah, it kind of breaks down that way.
Yeah, the Bible has parables that break that down. They're super awesome. Like there's the parable of the farmer and the people that were working for the farmer. So the workers went out in the field, and one of them was hired at the beginning of the day, and he said, I'll pay $100 or $20 to work the whole day. And the guy's like, okay, sweet. So he agreed to that. Then the person came at halfway through the day, and he told that person, I'll pay you $20 as well. And then a person came when there's only an hour left, and he says, I'll pay you $20 as well. And then the guy at the beginning of the day that was at first completely happy with the $20, all of a sudden is all pissed off when he compares himself to these other people. He's like, what? Hey, why are they getting $20? He's like, and the farmer said, did you not agree? Were you not super happy at the beginning of the day when I told you were going to get $20? Why do you care what they're getting? Get out of my face and let me give to my people what I want to pay them. You worry about what you got, and that's what the Bible describes heaven. It says the first will be last, the last will be first. And so there's a lot of people here on earth that have been paid a lot of their payment in full. And then there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are doing good things, prayer warriors, people that you'd never know their name or see their face. And these people are going to have great rewards in heaven for the things that they've done. So that's a great hope as well for people that feel like they're not getting recognized, that no one knows the pain that they've gone through, the turmoil, the problems that they've faced in life. God knows. He has a full account of everything. And, you will get full justice for everything where you were wronged, and you will get full reward for everything that you have not been rewarded. So that's the blessing of God, and that's the hope of eternal life. That's so, so awesome.
Absolutely. And it's honestly, it's just beautiful. And something I like to point out, like you were saying before, some people, they're like, I've been living like this way my whole life. There's no help for me. I've done so many wrong things. I could never turn to God. He wouldn't accept me. Like, brother, man, like you gotta just understand like the complete power and the awe of God. He can do things that you wouldn't even think is possible. With a snap of the finger, he could make the sun go away, Like don't underestimate the forgiveness of God,
Exactly. Read the prodigal son is the perfect story for that. The prodigal son story?
You want to
the prodigal son, this is what happened. So there's another parable, and Jesus spoke in parables because parables are so powerful, because oftentimes you don't know that the story's about you until the punchline. So a parable, he has this parable where he talks about a son that was had a really rich dad, and this son was like kind of a spoil, and this he had many sons, and this one son was kind of spoiled, and he like didn't like working for his dad, and he's like, you know, Dad, I don't want to sit around waiting for you to die to get your inheritance. Why don't you just pay me my inheritance now, and that way I can enjoy life now instead of sitting around waiting for you to die to get my inheritance. So the father's like, okay, and so the father paid him his inheritance, and the kid went off to a faraway land. And he said he just squandered this money on frivolous living, you know, to the point where he was literally not only had no money, he was homeless and working as like a slave for a place where his only payment was to eat the pig slop that he fed his pigs. So he thought to himself, oh man, you know, I'm going to die here eating this pig slop. I've thrown everything I had away, my entire inheritance that my father had given me. Maybe if I go back to him and tell him I'll be a slave, or tell him that I'll, like, you know, work as a servant, maybe it'll at least be better than this, you know, maybe he'll accept me. You know, I don't deserve it. Maybe he will. So he goes back to his father's house, and he's expecting the worst, you know. And his dad says to the older brother, who's been there the whole time and been faithful, he says, give your son, here he comes, you know, get the nicest coats and prepare the fatted lamb. We're going to have a feast. My son who's lost is now home. And, you know, that he just accepts his son and gives him everything as he accepted him right back, as if he was just never gone. And then this other son got all pissed off, like, hey, I've been here the whole time. What's up with that? And you're treating this guy as if he's never left. You know, it's like, yeah, that's the whole point of the story, is that's exactly what God does for unbelievers out there. You can be out there squandering your entire life away, and God's still going to accept you just like as if you never did that. I mean, that's the Bible says about it, for his forgiveness of sin is not only the forgiveness of sin, it's the forgetting of sin. God forgets the sins as if they never happened. How awesome is that? So the things that we feel all guilty about, that Satan wants to keep us down in the dumps, making you feel guilty. You're never good enough. You're a horrible person because of this, that, and the other. Those things are going to be forgotten through the power of God. So praise God.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've heard that parable before. I forgot the title. Like I said, I don't know if I told you before. I went to 9 years of Catholic school, and you know, sometimes they just didn't tell us the names of stuff, as you know, they didn't allow us to read parts of the Bible. One kid actually got kicked out of the Catholic school I was at because I think he was reading parts of the book of Revelation. And he just didn't go there after that. How dare he? You know, God forbid. God forbid he reads the God-inspired text. You know,
yeah,
ridiculous. But that just gave me a flashback to like 8th grade. Man, that was awesome, because I remember us reading that and having to do like a little like essay on how that we could relate that to our life and how all that other stuff. But yeah, that's one of the more powerful parables in the Bible. It's like, if we like the kid in the Bible turn our back on God and want all the reward now, but if we realize we were wrong and go back to the Father, we're going to be rewarded just as much as the son who's been there the entire time. And whether the son that's been there the entire time gets it or not, we're still going to be rewarded for not just praising God, but for abandoning him and having the strength and the courage and the mentality and the spiritual aspect of it to come back to him. That's where he rewards you the most, I feel, because I've been through that personally. Like I said, I was raised Christian, Catholic. I never really held on to the Catholic part of it, but I've always known that God was real and he sent Jesus Christ to die for my sins and the sins of the past, present, and future. I've always known that was a fact. Everything else was kind of, just not hearsay, but I just, went along to get along. Who am I, a 8-year-old to talk out, but it's and like I don't know if I talked to you before about how I went into whole paranormal researching and messing with Ouija boards and going to and messing with the old ancient deities that were hidden in mountains and stuff like that. And once you really realize that that stuff is real, that you can literally be grabbed by a fucking snake that's not even there, then yeah, that brings you right back to the Father. Well, it can do things. It could submit you. It could break you down and just keep you trapped and draw you in for more. And then the next thing you know, you're some sort of demonic inspired human being because they're living their work through you, whether you know it or not. Or B, you snap out of it. You say, this is wrong. This is not the energy I want to be around, because you could feel it. You know, I don't know if you ever done the paranormal stuff, but you could feel the energy just go bad.
Yeah, I played the Ouija board with from friends when I was in high school as well, and it was for legit real, dude. I mean, we asked it to tell a dog to go in the corner. Literally, this dog got up, went in the corner, the light started flashing. I mean, legit creepy stuff.
Yeah, dude, that stuff's no joke, man. I wouldn't suggest anyone in the world get a Ouija board, and it blows my mind that it's like a kid's toy. You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like sold as Parker Brothers kids toy. I mean, it's amazing what our world is just like oblivious to this stuff, but Satan's got his foothold, man. I mean, and that's what's so crazy. But you know what? That's the hope, you know. So I think, you know, for people out there who feel like, oh, I've been too bad, or I'm too deep into this other way of life or whatever, God, some of the greatest heroes in the Bible were the greatest opponents to this truth at some point in their life, like Saul of Tarsus, who became Paul. He was literally out there rounding up Christians and killing them for a living. That's what he used to do. And that's one of the greatest authors of the Bible, who then repented to Jesus, became a believer, and became one of the greatest authors of the Bible. And that's the story of all of us, you know, and that's the story of the Jewish people as well, that they're turned their backs on God over and over and over again through the Bible, but God still accepts them back over and over and over again. So it's like, you know, and God allows us to go through these things of deception. I too was deceived with the whole alien deception, that kind of that thing. I went through my prodigal son journey just like yourself, you know, but then God calls you home. And that way you can be a better witness to other people about this stuff. So that's would be my hope for other people out there who feel they're caught up in the wrong side right now, deep into something evil or bad. Maybe God just allows you to go to that point, so now you can turn from those ways and now be a great witness to others about how bad that stuff is, because you've been there, done that. And God's just used you to go through that, and now he's calling you home and back to the truth. So that would be my prayer.
Absolutely. That's exactly what the Father does. He works in many mysterious ways that we can never understand, but it's just so awesome that he has the power of this entire realm that we live in to protect us, even in times where we're dabbling in stuff that he knows we shouldn't be, but knows that us being curious little humans have to experience to fully realize the significance of what's really happening here. You know, the whole spiritual aspect, the unseen zones, perhaps, you know, that's a badass song, by the way, too.
Thanks. Yeah, no, exactly. He sees our life from beginning to end. You know, he's like, we're watching the parade one float at a time. He's up above watching the floats, the whole parade from beginning to end. So he knows your life from beginning to end. And he's got a plan. You know, all we've got to do is just pray for God to reveal himself to us in a way that makes sense. Jump into the word of God, pick up the Bible and read the book of John and pray that God reveal himself, and he will reveal himself in a way to you that'll make sense. So
absolutely.
It works, man.
It's what I like. That's what I'm trying to tell people. It works. You pray for strength, for clarity, for anything. I'm not saying if your leg breaks, pray to God and your leg's going to be good tomorrow, but and you know, in things that are more controllable, he can really help you out in a way, you know. And like you said, he accepts everyone for who we are and what we've been through, and he accepts us more for what we've been through than who we are, I think, you know, because he already knows who we are. He was probably having a good old chat with us before he sent us down here on earth and wiped our memory, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Book of Life was written. I don't even know when that was written, but it's been written, and you know, names can get written, can get erased out of there, and you know, I'm trying my damn hardest to keep Steve Richards up in there. You know what I'm saying? Because That's some of the last things we got to hold on to if they're gonna make this technological jump. And once you make the technological jump to the whatever you call it, to the beast system, we can call it that, then I think that takes your name right out of the book.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Yeah, they call it. They have a lot of names for it. The singularity, the event
Hive
horizon,
mind.
all these
Yep.
people. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the hive mind. But yeah, it's all talking about basically, yeah, their hope and dream to become gods themselves, and they're even open to the idea of giant calamities to happen, you know, and that's where this evolve or die concept comes from, which is a huge concept within the New Age, where they're literally saying, you know, there's a lot of people here on Earth that still are caught up within the old dogma of the age of Pisces, the fish god. And until they move on, until they're, you know, removed or liquidated from the Earth, we can't move on into the evolved age of Aquarius and go moving into the Aquarian age. And so they literally want to wipe out Christians, or they have this hope that the great alien brotherhood will come and abduct Christians away to take them off onto another planet until until Christians are more spiritually prepared to evolve, and those left behind would then be the chosen ones in their mind. But
man, if there's a group of people who's ready to be spiritually evolved, I believe it's us more than them, you know, because I'm not looking to get a technical upgrade. I'm just looking to get a little bit more understanding, if anything, you know. I'm not too greedy.
well, that's what's so sad is Satan's convinced them to want the very thing that God is offering for free, you know,
Right.
eternal life. It's like that's what they're all after, but they've been lied to. For, you know, something has been twisted in their heads where they don't think they're good enough, or they think they're good enough, or the opposite. A lot of people think they're good enough on their own. I'm already good enough. I don't need no God. I'm a great person. You know, I'm perfect. You know,
that's self-idolization. It's evident. It's evidently everywhere. People with their makeup and even dudes wearing makeup now, bro. Like I know that's a whole nother subject, but that's more Sodom and Gomorrah for you. You think God was really happy with that? No, he sent fire and brimstone down. And how do we know that? Because we can still find sulfur balls there today that test like 96% freaking pure. You know, that's not a coincidence. And then you have the pillar of salt that oddly looks like a woman, you know, just right outside the town, you know, no coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, ridiculous.
No, I mean, it goes back to the fallen angels and what they taught. Azazel was the one that taught the fabrication of mirrors and the workmanship of bracelets, ornaments, and the use of paint and beautifying of the eyebrows, the use of stones of every valuable of select kind, and the sorts of dyes so that the world can become altered. So dyeing people's hair, dyeing people's and painting our eyebrows with makeup and all these kinds of things. You know, it's the self idolizing and the ego driven motivation of these things. And it's not that these things necessarily are evil within themselves. It's what they become. You know, it's also, he taught men swords, knives, shields, breastplates, and the fabrication of metal ornaments. So it's not that metal is bad or making things out of metal is bad. It's like fire, you know, fire can be used to burn people and kill somebody, or used to keep you warm. You know, these things in themselves are not one or the other. It's what people, they took this information from heaven because these were angels that had access to the heavenly realms. They took this information and then they twisted it and inverted it for their own reasons on earth, to be worshipped and to make people feel like they could worship themselves as well through all these works that they created with these things. So it's pretty amazing because, like, yeah, if you go through all the different things they got, they taught Amazarek taught sorcery and the dividing of roots. Armors taught sorcery.
Say that again. Say that one more time. What was his name?
Armoros, like Omarosa almost, or the one before that.
Yeah.
Amazarek.
And he was involved with the root cutting.
He taught sorcerers and the dividers of roots, just like Semyaza. Semyaza was the first fallen angel who taught enchantments and root cuttings. So enchantments is like witchcraft, and root cuttings is like, cutting roots or
Pharmakia
possibly
and
using pharmakia to make pharmacy and make drugs. Now, dividers of roots is a different thing. I believe that could be the top sorcery, and the dividers of roots could actually be root grafting and the grafting of plants. So back then, the idea of being able to genetically modify plants was a godlike ability. These people, when they first were becoming farmers or whatever, the idea that you could take two plants, split them together and graft them together and then create a new hybrid plant was like a godlike attribute to these people. So, and learning how, pollen works and all this kind of stuff of how to genetically modify food. I mean, if you look at corn today, corn is nothing, it's 100% genetically modified, or the original corn kernel was probably around the size of a wheat kernel. And through thousands of years, they've genetically modified to what we have it today. So, and that's pretty much true with almost every food we have out there. And this isn't the genetic modifications done with drugs or injecting anything. This is just done through picking different types of plants. It's kind of like my brother. We have a podcast where we talked about the pre-flood world and giant plants. And my brother actually specializes, at least he used to do building or growing giant pumpkins. And so you can grow these pumpkins like 800 pounds, just gargantuan pumpkins that, and it's a hybrid type thing that was done through hybridizing like a squash with a pumpkin and finding these far off other plants that were at one point one kind. And it creates a hybrid vigor situation where it actually pulls attributes of that plant out and then creates it back to its original kind almost. And that's why you get this gigantism, because in the original kinds, they were all giant. Everything was better. So, I mean, the things what we actually see in the world is actually the opposite of evolution. Things aren't getting better. Everything's getting worse. Everything's winding down. Entropy is breaking everything down. Worse, older, degrading, where in the beginning it was perfect. And so it's kind of like the food chain. We're taught the food pyramid. We used to believe we have to flip that upside down as well, because what we're taught with the food pyramid is completely opposite than the way we should be eating. And the same is true with evolution. It's not evolving and getting better. Things are degrading and getting worse.
absolutely, just go look at your local Walmart and tell me that we're evolving into something brilliant. Yeah. But something I wanted to say about I'm sorry, what was that that fallen angel's name again? Amazomac or something?
Amazaric.
And I just find that rather strange that there's a lot of that ayahuasca stuff found in the Amazon, and Amazaric taught the root cutting, as you just said. So I find that just maybe not coincidental at all. I find that rather correlated in a way.
Not at all. If you were to do an investigation on names of spirit guides, names of shaman entities, you will find literally these exact names. I've heard Semyaza called from a spirit guide from a shaman, the exact name, and used more than once by a Hindu person, and another shaman guy in the Amazon used the same Semyaza deity to call upon. And Azazel and Azaziel.
Right.
Or they have versions of this like Azazarel or something like that. It'll be kind of like a little bit different, but it's pretty much the same obvious thing, just twist with a little twist.
Right. And it's just even more interesting how you say two different guys from two completely different parts of the world, most likely at two different times, had, talking about the same dude who just happens to be in the Book of Enoch that people decanonize and don't give any credit for. That's why they did that, guys. And another reason why I think they took it out of the Bible was because it was a warning for the people of the final generation, or a generation to come, as it says, Yeah. And I think that was that was our warning right there,
Yeah, exactly. There are things that are hidden away until a certain time that will be revealed that will have, completely flip things on their heads of what we think reality is and isn't. I mean, the Bible talks about there's one of these fallen angels is chained in the abyss, that Apollyon or Abaddon, that will be released in end times. An angel will be given a key to the abyss to release this fallen angel that will unleash these locust creatures that will torment mankind. Anybody that's basically not doesn't have the mark of Christ, which is what the mark of the beast is, an inverted versions of, because we basically have the mark of God on us, just like the blood over the doorpost in ancient times. We have the mark on our own forehead, and Satan puts his inverted mark of the beast on their forehead. Well, we'll be protected during those times from these locust creatures, while everyone else will be tormented. And it has an interesting verse there where it says these people will pray to die, but they won't be able to die.
Oh
So that's
yeah.
another
Oh
kind of
yeah.
goes back to this transhuman idea that these people have somehow created the ability to download their consciousness or put their cells in a body that's going to live forever, and they can't even die while they're going through this torment.
Yeah, it says they shall what does it exactly say? They shall like wish death upon themselves, but death shall flee from their bodies. Like that's
Yeah.
that's some stuff right there. That's something that people got to read, reread, and research, and then read it again and be like, oh man, because that's literally what they're shooting for. Like what else could it really be shooting for if you let's say you do take the chip update or whatever you want to call it, and then you want to back out? Well, you kind of already in the system,
Yeah.
real backing out of the virtual world. If you're essentially, living forever, then how are you going to escape that? You can't
Yeah.
unplug yourself from that,
Well, these people are so convinced they've convinced themselves there is no God. This is the only way, is with our own technology. We can build it. Little do they know, they're getting these blueprints through channeled information from the demonic realm that's just a carrot on the stick to nowhere. They're building a black box that they think has all this fancy quantum computer stuffs in it, or quantum computers in it, that's going to do some fancy thing for them and lead them this next step of evolution. And it's nothing but a Ouija board in disguise.
Yeah, and that brings me into something else I wanted to talk about now, was places like CERN, D-Wave, Kindred, Boston Dynamics, and all these transhumanism labs. Do you think all of institutes like that, or whatever you want to call them, like that, do you think they have any similarities with the pre-flood world? And what was the other thing I was going to say? And do you think transhumanism will be the new last straw, as genetic manipulation most likely was the last straw in the days of Noah before God unleashed, watery hell on earth, you can call it?
Yeah, I just don't know how much farther you can take it. There's a lot of different signs that kind of that show that we're kind of reaching this event horizon point. The idea that they're normalizing pedophilia now is kind of the ultimate, end game goal. And what more can you do past that point? It's like, how much farther can you take it? It's like that's the thing that literally all these ancient societies have done, like Greece and all this stuff. They normalize pedophilia, and then it just goes under, man.
Yeah, we already normalized and almost idolized child sacrifice via abortion centers and whatnot.
Yep.
Like that's normal. Like, what'd you do last Saturday? Oh, I just went down to Planned Parenthood, got my ticket, good to go.
Yeah. These women are like proud of getting. I mean, it's just disgusting to see some of the way these people talk now, that are just, completely demonic and proud of it. That's where it gets to the point where it's like you can't go much farther. It's now externalized. This stuff is now, it's no longer hidden. There's no secrets. It's now for all to see, and for each person to choose, whom do you serve? Which side do you choose? There's no disguise anymore. It's the devil or God. Heaven or hell. Where do you want to end up?
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be that tough for people, especially when you do dig into it and realize, oh my gosh, I've just been deceived into thinking all this stuff was nonsense. I've just been deceived into thinking I had to be something that I didn't. And And so all we got to do is believe, repent, believe, turn from our old ways, and be born again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. I had another question, but I kind of think this was answered already. I was going to ask how much further down the road is the human similar or civilization away from their next step of evolution or transhumanism upgrade type deal.
Well, that's just, it's constantly, evolving, as you would say. But I mean, it's constantly happening with this Neuralink and different things like that. We're actually seeing these things implemented where people are doing implants into their own brains. And I think once they start messing with memory and implanting memories or recording memories, and then being able to store that through some sort of 5G thing. I mean, I think it's kind of like, it's like they're harvesting all this information in digital granaries now, and they're not necessarily doing anything with it right now. They're just harvesting and putting it away for then when they do get technology that can decipher or somehow, run this through some sort of new program that will extract even more information out of all this information, this digital information they've gathered. Then they'll be able to fully utilize these things to their evil abilities.
Absolutely. And something someone in the chat said here is that the brain chip is definitely the next step. And, it could possibly be. I think that could be further down the road, but I think they're going to use maybe not this pandemic, but because it's obviously not a pandemic, people, it's a hoax, but they're going to use let's call it a media pandemic, something sort of like this, or it could just be Corona #2 that pops up in a couple of weeks. That's even more deadlier. And they're going to have the super new vaccine that has a chip in it. And it's not even just me saying that. This, like I said, I work at a restaurant. I work at an open restaurant. So the kitchen is pretty much in the middle of the restaurant. And there's people walking around there and they're talking about how this is nothing but a hoax, and they're going to start forcing vaccines with RF chips in them to track us and upgrade us and to help rejuvenate cells. I'm like, and if I say that on YouTube, I'm a conspiracy theorist, and there's people just talking about it like it's going to happen. And then the really creepy thing is, you look at obviously the stock market is it's about to drop off. They're going to drop the dollar. But right now, if you look at not all, but a lot of these big corporations, these big vaccine companies, their stocks are going nowhere but up.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I find that rather strange.
Toilet paper companies.
And Poland Springs is definitely making a buck right now too. People getting water, toilet paper. It's all just a big fire sale, That's all this is. Just that's how they get you.
They probably were overstocked with toilet paper or something like. Well, we're gonna get rid of all this stuff. Hey,
right?
Let's just say that people need toilet paper. Let's start just showing up. And why was it toilet paper? Why wasn't it water? Why was it that made no sense. It's like, when is toilet paper all of a sudden being the main thing? And I think it was just because they just showed pictures of it and just like snowball. People are like, what? We're supposed to get toilet paper? Okay, let's go and get toilet paper. I mean, it's just shows how sheeple people are.
One way to wipe your bum,
exactly. Even in the world don't even have toilet paper or use it.
Right, and even something simple like Richie was saying the other day, just go buy a couple packs of sponges, keep re-cleaning them. You got not an unlimited amount of ass wipe, but you got a decent amount,
No doubt.
It's just common sense, people. If you can do 1 + 2 = 4, you could wipe your ass with a leaf,
Yeah, I mean, that's the least of your concerns. If things are really going down, is like, we're just like, wow. I don't know.
Where am I going to take a poop? That's really what's on your mind. If they turn the lights out, I'm just going to go in the middle of the street like they're doing in San Francisco and getting away with it. That's even more ridiculous,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just everywhere. I mean, have you seen that poop maps where they just show
I haven't.
solid brown in the whole city.
Solid brown. That's awesome. It's not awesome, but It's just interesting how they've brought human beings to this level of living, and people think it's normal. It's just like the skies. People see X's and O's and tic-tac-toe boards, and they're like, "Oh, look at that! I saw that cloud when I was 5." No, you didn't.
No, yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think they're just, and it's a fruition of these politics saying, most of these towns where they have the worst homeless problem is where they've implemented the most government help. And so what does that tell you is that those things don't work. All it does is it just attract more people to be homeless. I mean, if you set it up easier for people to be homeless and easier for people to do all these drugs and do all these things, then it's just going to be more people doing it, not less. I mean, makes no sense.
Absolutely. And that's leading into like what they're doing with this whole coronavirus thing here in Massachusetts. The governor got on TV today. Like I said, he pretty much shut down all restaurants and bars and retail stores until the 7th of next month. But what he was really emphasizing the whole time is he's telling people to stay indoors, to practice on self-isolation and social distancing yourself from people, because you can't trust the person next to you because they could have the coronavirus and they could be holding it, and then you might have a strong immune system, but it could be on your skin for 24 hours and you could give it to someone. And
Yeah.
it's normalizing the fact that people are going to have jobs anymore and they're going to pay you to stay at home. Because one thing he said, he's like, starting Tuesday, people whose jobs will be affected by this can sign up for unemployment. And that's exactly what they want you to do.
Yeah.
They want you to get paid by the government.
Totally.
It's ridiculous. And that's how they're
Totally.
going to drop the dollar as well. Like, where's all this money going to come from that they're going to pay you to stay at home and do nothing?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's exactly right. It's like if they just gave all these people money, it would completely ruin our economy. And that's what people don't understand is the trickle down effect and the way things have to, work. It's like you just flood the economy with just massive dollars and just makes the money worth nothing. So it's gotta be done in a way that makes sense, and nobody wants anyone to starve. And I think we're in the greatest country. No one's perfect. Our country's far from perfect, but we're definitely the greatest country you could ever be in. And everybody in the world knows it because everybody in the world wants to come here.
I was just talking about that a little while ago with someone. I'm like, people probably in the outside of the United States see like big pictures and videos of like New York City and wow, look at the beautiful buildings and the nightlife looks awesome. And then they get their first class ticket to New York City and they end up in the south side of Bronx and they're like, whoa, this wasn't advertised on the television, on the USA commercials.
Yeah.
And it's just like us going to like somewhere like Italy, like Sicily's probably beautiful, Napoli's probably nice, Rome's probably looking okay, but you leave the inner cities and you go to like the suburbs and it's just like Slumville from what I hear,
Yeah.
Like,
no, exactly. It's, you go into the deeper depths of the cities, the inner workings, it always is.
The devil's always hiding in the details, people. And
Yep.
That's every situation here on Earth right now, because he has a counterfeit version of everything. And the only way to figure out if you're using his counterfeit version is to pay a little bit more attention. If you start seeing pentagrams on your fucking local news program, you should probably turn it off,
Yeah.
Yeah, they love
exactly. All this stuff that's bringing confusion to people and just dividing people, all this stuff, that's all of the devil. I mean, the Bible says, God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. So God wants everything to be peaceful, wants everything to, the Bible even says that he wishes that not even one, if it's his will, that everyone would be saved. He doesn't want anyone to perish, so it's like, but he also gives us the free will to choose. So it's not God, striking people down. It's people making the choice to, not accept the free gift of salvation when it's right there for the taking.
Absolutely. And I personally feel bad for the people that have never even experienced the full power of the Holy Spirit, the light of God. They were just born into like a anti-Christ system, an evolution system, a Big Bang reality, and they've never
Yeah.
they never even sat down and rationally thought about a creation theory and the fact that they weren't born from I don't even know what you call it, a mistake, pretty much. Because if we're just a mistake in the middle of the universe that's ever expanding, then do as thou wilt, because you have no repercussions after this. But if it just so happens that this is a geocentric universe and we're the center of it, and everything we do has a little bit of repercussion afterwards, well, then the burden's on us to live the way we're supposed to live instead of living as we want to live. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And I'm pretty sure you don't keep up with the news and shit like that, but little things get dumped on my lap every now and again. And CBS had a nice little hit piece the other morning called "The War on Science," and you would think with the title that that's something kind of what we're doing here. Maybe not science in general, but the Scientologists and the New Age science, because I use the scientific method all the time to prove these people wrong. I got nothing wrong with science. It's this new science they're having these. I have an issue with that, but so they released this little thing called "The War on Science," and it goes on to show how there's classrooms of people that don't believe in evolution. They're at a flat earth conference. They're talking about climate engineering. They're talking about the teaching of real history and how all these major institutes are putting out fake history books with stuff that didn't happen, or they're just completely erasing things out. And then right at the end of the video, because they're showing how all that is pretty much accurate and it's undeniable, and then right at the end of it, they're like, yeah, everything you just saw is just nothing more than a war on science. And we can't have that, because that puts the burden on us, as if, I'm just the regular person, and if I need an oil change, I have to go see the car company people because I don't know how to change the oil, and I can't have the burden on me. So we have to rely on everyone, and we go along to get along. And that's exactly what we're not supposed to be doing. The burden's on us to make our decisions right now, and it's gonna whatever decision you make based upon what you think reality is you're gonna have to answer for that in the future. I think,
some people just like playing dumb and think, oh, somebody out there's got it figured out. Somebody's smarter than me, and when I need it, I'll go to them and ask them or whatever. Or I just don't want to think about it now. Just and that's what I think what evolution does. It makes people have this false hope that, oh, we've got all that figured out, right? They know where we came from and where we're going, and that how science works and how the history works. I mean, most evolutionists that really study evolutionists and astronomers, they know evolution is BS. They know it's wrong, and but they don't have anything to replace it with. And so they're just kind of stuck, because science is all about presentation. You've got to have answers. If you don't have anything better to replace it with, they're just, going to continue the same lie, even though they know it's not true. They know that they have no evidence for any of it. And it's just a bait and switch system based on, micro to macro evolution. Present microevolution and say, well, if billions of years passed, it would be macroevolution. I know we have no evidence of it. We can't test it, see it, or observe it, but just have faith that over billions and billions of years, a single cell could form everything that lives today. I mean, it's amazing.
Right. And somehow everything has the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence. That's just a coincidence. That's not a fingerprint of God. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, God's fingerprints are all throughout his design.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. From the grass to the trees to tomatoes to human beings. We're all not one and the same, but we come from the same creation, the epicenter. He spoke us into existence, so therefore we're all beings of frequency. We're all technically energy fields. Like I like to tell people, I'm just a spiritual being having a human experience. And
Yeah.
once you realize that, you'll realize the difference between right and wrong. And you can take that and take your spirit to a negative realm that it's never experienced before, and you could do that. And that's your choice, but I'm gonna stay over here and stay where it makes sense. Stay where the
Yeah.
positivity's at, stay where the progression's at, not the repetitive, not the like the repetitive, the original sin. Like, how many times can people repackage that and y'all fall for it? It's so
Amazing.
crazy.
I mean,
It
literally
really is.
every false teaching out there believes it. Every mystery school out there teaches it. Every alien channeler teaches it. Every new age person teaches it. But then they all put their own twist on it and act like it's something new. And no one recognizes they're saying the exact same thing over and over and over again and acting like it's some amazing new thing they've discovered. And it's like, are you guys have amnesia or something? It's like, look around you. This is the idea that you are divine, or all you need to do is look within. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that story repackaged. And there's some great documentaries out there that go over like the history kind of that. If you look up, have you watched Megiddo 2?
I don't believe so. McGee, how do you MEGIT?
MEGIDDO 2.
Okay.
And it's about a 2.5, 3-hour video. Oh man, it goes into great detail about the original sin and how it's just throughout time repackaged. How it's just, I mean, there's somebody watches that, it'll change your complete paradigm if you're a new ager or if you actually believe that and you watch that video, you're gonna be in for a rude awakening.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the most polite way to put it.
Yeah.
Like one real rude awakening. Absolutely. But I got another question here. Do you think with the ongoing this pandemic crisis, whatever you want to call it, of COVID-19 coronavirus, do you think that has anything to do with the transhumanism agenda in examples such as money, vaccines, cell upgrades, the downloading of information, virtual reality, and all that stuff? You think that's all? You think that
I
could?
think all this could snowball, into something much bigger. I mean, I'm hoping that this is going to come and go and just be like, but it definitely seems to be snowballing much more than any of these things like, SARS or bird flu or, swine flu, all these things we've had in the past that have come and gone. This one just seems to be on another level, but not as many people dying. I mean, so that's what's just so fascinating about it. It's like, why is this one so much more people freaking out so much more, but no, there aren't the numbers to reflect this type of worry. And I guess it's because it's so contagious, but they're showing these pictures but it's just the flu, but they show all these videos and pictures of people like just dropping flat on their face in China, like they're just out there just walking the streets and just like completely just die. I mean, is that what happens when you have the flu or cold? I mean, so which is it? Are those fake videos or are those people really dying of coronavirus, so.
See, yeah, the thing is, with China, you can't really trust much what comes out of there, seeing as they have their own version of the internet that we're not allowed to, and they're not allowed on our side of the internet. So any videos being leaked out of China, I believe, have to be doctored up or something added or whatever, or just pure propaganda, in my opinion. And something I want to add in about this whole corona thing. I think this could be a cover-up story because what's his name? Donald Trump was talking on whatever the other night when he put the entire nation to a state of emergency or a national crisis or whatever they even called it, whatever BS they want to call it. But they have bills that they could usher in anything under this. So it's not just nothing that he put us under. It's something that could lead to everything that we're talking about. But I think that, well, he said that, what did he say? He said that this coronavirus is going to come and go. But then he goes on to say right after, like he was clearly reading off the script, and then he just looks up with a dead face. He's like, but it will be back. It will be back, and it'll be back even harder. And he goes on to read how the stats are going down and we're finding a cure and it's all going to be good. And he keeps emphasizing how it's going to come back. It's going to come back. And, so I think that it's going to come and go a little bit. It's going to dip down a little bit. And then out of nowhere, I think you're actually going to see a couple groups of people just flop, because what's going on right now everywhere in the world, not just this corona thing, but at the same exact time, they're doing the census, the 2020 census.
Yeah.
They want to see what types of people live in these specific locations. And now with the whole 5G grid going up everywhere, and I don't know I don't know how much you've looked into the whole 5G thing, but I believe that those are silent weapons. I think they could destabilize and maybe even kill human beings by just flipping on a switch and targeting their energy towards something. Maybe, us, because we're frequencies, we're energies, we're energy beings, and they're going to manipulate an energy field that's never been touched on this earth before. And if people start dropping due to the 5G, the coronavirus is nothing more than Azazel, the scapegoat. They're just going to point the finger and be like, hey, look, the corona's back. Now we got to do something. Here's your new cell upgrade. Here's your new vaccine or your brain chip or whatever you want to call it. And that's when the snowball is really going to turn into a boulder. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. That's that's the kind of creepy thing. You know who Sylvia Brown is? That she's like a like an occultist, speaks like the future for future events and stuff. She's like a fortune teller basically, and she goes on all these programs like Oprah and whatnot. Well, she had some program she was on like back in the 80s or 90s where she predicted in 2020 there would be a great flu pandemic that would come and then leave and then come back again with a vengeance, just like you said. So that's kind of creepy. But
I didn't even know that. No.
Yeah, I mean, and knowing that these people speak to demons that always speak in half truths and half lies, that's how they get away with this stuff, because some of the stuff they say oftentimes has tidbits of truth, but
they get off. That's how they get that's how they're off the burden. That's how they're like, oh, see, we already told you guys,
Yeah, exactly.
Like the whole predictive programming. They're like, how could you not see this was going to happen? We told you over and over and over again about 9/11, and then it happened, and everyone was like, oh, it must have been those pesky terrorists,
Yeah. No, it's all around us, man.
It's ridiculous. But hey, so now that we're talking about Donald real quick, how about him moving the National Day of Prayer from May 7th to today? What do you think that the significance of that really was? Is there not going to be a May 7th or something? Yeah. Oh yeah, that was all over the news this morning and last night. Donald Trump moved the National Day of Prayer from May 7th to today. Is that referencing that there's just not going to be a May 7th or something? I don't know.
Or we have to pray now and not that. Yeah, I don't know. Why would he do that? Did they say why or what the reasoning behind it is?
I didn't really read what the real reasoning behind it was, but when I read an article today, he said that I guess he was on TV. He prayed to God for guidance through these hard times we are in right now. And I'm just wondering what God, with probably a lowercase g, he was freaking praying to.
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. Yeah, Trump's one of those ones that's, it's like you don't know what to believe there. It's like the QAnon. It's like
oh my God.
Things. It's like has lots of nuggets of truth, lots of hope possibly, but then okay, what really is this?
Yeah, and real quick about Q and Trump, there's no coincidence that Donald Trump's son was on TV 2 nights ago. I think he was on Fox News giving some interview or something, and on his tie was a big golden Q. That has nothing to do with anything.
Oh, these guys are totally in the know. They know what's going on for sure. I mean, they're big time into watching, all these things and knowing how people are reacting to this information. So even if they don't even know who Q was and it was just something, they'd still joke about it just to tongue in cheek and laugh about it. But yeah, it's hard to know, how the stuff's going. My hope is, I didn't vote for anybody. Kind of like you last election. I was kind of like that old South Park where the choice was douche and turd sandwich or something like that. Only two choices you get. But yeah, I felt like, man, if these are only two choices, how can this be, what we've arrived to? And so I just felt like in protest, just didn't vote because I didn't want to be responsible for either one. But
yeah, take the burden right off you with that. Yeah, that's the smartest thing you probably could have done.
Yeah.
And even if voting matters, even if it didn't matter, either way, you didn't subject yourself to at least have that mental thing like, dude, I voted this guy in, now he's effing us over. Like, what the hell? Like, that must do a lot of toll on people. The mental illusion that they put in the bad guy. Like, no, they were selected years and years ago, whether you know it or not. It's
a lot of people feel that way with Obama. They voted for Obama and completely felt let down and flipped. So yeah, I mean, it's for sure happening. But I mean, I guess my my hope would be that kind of like the Bible does sometimes, where I mean, you look at some of the people in the Bible that God has used; they were not good guys, man. I mean, some of these people were murderers. I mean, like Moses was a murderer. And magician, practiced magical arts and stuff. Solomon was a big practicer of occult stuff and got deep into having orgies with all these women. King David was, conspired to have his best friend killed just so he could steal his wife. I mean, just all kinds of evil stuff these guys did. But then the Bible still calls them, these people were used by God, some of the greatest heroes of the Bible. And so, and some of that I think is to, back to the reference of the prodigal son, is that none of us are good enough. None of us are earning our way through good work. So even these people that are seemingly bad can be saved and used by God if he so desires to use them, just like he did in the Bible over and over and over again. So, like I said, I've always had the total belief that it doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat. But one of the things that really made me pay more attention to the whole Trump thing is the reaction of the left. I've never seen anything like the demonic, wild-eyed, rabid people in the streets that literally they don't even know what to say. They're just literally this crazy demonic look in their eyes and just blowing whistles and going crazy. I mean, since Trump took an election, something was unleashed literally from hell. I mean, a demonic reaction happened and implant that just was like triggered. I mean, literally these people were triggered into another level of demonic reaction. So I just think well, if the demonic realm is that mad about Trump, why? Why is he that? Unless he's doing something possibly that could be good. But then again, and then if we're going to be against Trump, what's the alternative? I don't know anybody that's going to do a better job than what he's doing. So I don't know. It's
a hard situation. Yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But like you said, the reaction of the left side, bro, it's almost laughable. It is laughable. These people go down the street. They got duct tape on their nipples saying, "This isn't my president." I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you people?
And they're openly violent and openly calling for violence. And then when people are violent, they're openly celebrating the violence. That's never happened ever. That's never happened. No, people have never been openly violent in that type of way. Like literally there's all kinds of videos saying, yeah, we should kill the president. Yeah, we should, somebody should assassinate. I mean, why aren't these people? I mean, how is that even possible that people are so openly? Imagine if that was done with Obama. Yeah, we should kill Obama. I mean, these people would be arrested on the spot. There'd be videos, all kinds of them online. I mean,
Right, you couldn't even joke about stuff like that in school back in the day. Like if you were like, "Oh man, I want to kill Obama," well, you just found your way of first class pass to detention, or even worse, expulsion maybe, because you just made a threat to a public figure. But you say that about Trump, here's a gold star. We'll put you right on CNN. You and Greta have your own slideshow later on. No big deal.
See, that's the amazing thing where I'm just like, man, I mean, as much as I don't like Trump, maybe he is being used by God just from the reaction of the left. I mean, if they're this angry, why? Why is the demonic realm this worked up about Trump, whatever Trump's doing? Because I don't see he's not doing any things that they're claiming, just being a racist. I mean, he's definitely a huge egomaniac, crazy, annoying type personality guy that says all the wrong things, but I don't think he's necessarily a racist or a homophobe. Just all these things they're calling him. I'm not seeing any of that, but
no, I'm right with you. It's still, at the end of the day, I still believe it's two snakes to the same body, or maybe they're just two separate snakes, like on the old medical field logo. Like that's no big deal with the angel wings. That's probably a good sign.
That's actually an interesting thing to study there.
Been looking at that a lot lately. Yeah.
The caduceus, it's like supposed to represent Moses' staff.
That's what I thought it did. That's what I thought it was. Yeah. Same thing with the WHO people, the WHO, whatever you call them, the World Health Organization. They got the staff along the flat Earth with the crown or corona around it. It's rather strange.
Symbology. But what's interesting is the caduceus. Like, there's a big argument. If you look into it, there's like a big like argument between like two sides. There's some people that say it should just be the one snake because that represents Moses, and that the two serpents actually represents a duality and more of like an occult new age kind of like inverted version of what it should be with just one serpent on the staff. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's some crazy times we live in. But here, before we wrap this up, let me just get a little insight from you about Bill Gates and him stepping down from Microsoft yesterday to go fight the pandemic head on. Do you do you have anything to say about that?
Anything about that either?
Oh,
I've been out of the loop for the last couple of days, man.
Yeah, wow. He stepped down yesterday, and there's no coincidence that it was Bill Gates of all people, because it was the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation, along with Johns Hopkins University, who is leading the study on coronavirus right now, by the way, who had the simulation event 201, October 18th, 2019, of a global pandemic outbreak, and they simulated it in New York City, where the most quarantines, where the most school evacuations and stuff like that are happening right now. They had all of that happen in October 18th. And another really weird thing that happened on October 18th of 2019 was how like there's the Olympic Games and the Special Olympics and all this other stuff. Well, they have this thing called the Military Olympic Games. And where do you think, and when and where do you think that happened? Well, it happened October 18th in Wuhan, China. Anyone in the world can look that up. It's still on the internet for as I know. And if it's not, go to my last 3 videos and it's all there, because like I said, they're whitewashing the internet. Like let me see if they let us do this again. Let me try this out real quick. Let me go English to Hebrew. Let me try this. We'll go COVID. We'll take this, copy it. I did this last night and it just comes out to COVID, but I have a video from just the other day that I made that shows that's not the case. So let's see what we got. Paste. See, it comes out COVID, so that's interesting. Let me get my video up from the other day that proves that they're literally just they're taking real information off the internet. It's not like they're updating the internet because the information was fake before. Like, no, we're hitting on too many of the right cylinders, and they don't want us to to see what is really happening with this whole coronavirus, because the whole Kobe Bryant and coronavirus thing line up really well, because Kobe Bryant was buried in Corona del Mar. Rather interesting. And another
Yeah, see,
interesting thing is
yeah.
in Corona del Mar, 2 days before Kobe Bryant was buried, before he got killed, which was on the 26th, and he wore number 24, and 24 plus 2 is 26. So on the 24th of January, there is a plane crash in Corona del Mar. And if you look at the images of the plane crash and the images of the helicopter crash, there's not much There's not much differentiates, however you want to say that. It's rather interesting. But here, let me get this full screen real quick. And yeah, so that's just COVID. There you go. COVID into the English Hebrew. You see that, right?
Yeah.
You see that. You take it, you copy it, you bring it to the old Hebrew to English, and it gives you Kobe. You could see that how that's the same exact symbol, just copy and pasted, and it gives you Kobe. But now in this little reality, it gives us COVID. COVID is COVID now, but in reality, COVID in Hebrew was Hebrew to Kobe. It's
That's
just strange.
crazy.
Yeah, dude, it's so crazy. That had me bugging the other night.
Interesting.
Yeah,
We don't want to cause, turmoil. We had to change this word and the meaning of this word. It's been this same meaning since ancient times, but we just had to change it so people didn't think, conspiracy theories too
right,
much.
I just think it's rather strange how it's Hebrew of all languages, one of the three original, I believe, that was translated. Yeah, why wouldn't it be? Don't let it be like Chinese or Italian or German. No, let it be one of the oldest ones in the book, like we're talking about the oldest lie in the book of the game, the original sin.
And this goes back to, like I was saying earlier, there's no way these kinds of things could be planned by humans. That's where I lose track when people say, yeah, the Illuminati's behind this. They killed him and they sacrificed him. They buried him in this place. All these connects. Like, no human is connecting those kind of dots. This is like literally demonic wink nod to all the people out there going, yep, we are right behind the scenes doing these things. And these are our confirmation, affirmation, and admission. So you don't hold us accountable because we told you before it happened, just like you said.
Absolutely. Another thing that relates to is the whole like D-wave and simulation theory thing, and finding parallel universes. It's all just another way to just demask and just take away from the creation theory and how there's one set level plane, and them finding, whether it's 400,000 other galaxies or 100,000 parallel universes. That just takes away the individual aspect of this, the spiritual aspect. This is one solid realm we're in. This isn't. We're not thing away in the Milky Way, and there wasn't. Well, actually, they claim they found in space there was a explosion the other day that was just pretty much the same size as the Big Bang. Happened the other day. I don't see how that's possible, because the Big Bang kind of killed everything and then created everything. So what's really going on?
Shrunk down to one size of a pea or something right before the Big Bang. So
yeah,
they don't know anything. They don't know any of this stuff. I mean, just look at the people trying to predict the weather, how bad they are. It's like, I can't even predict the weather. How are they going to predict what happened billions of years ago, supposedly? It's just nonsense.
Yeah, the weather's ridiculous over here in Massachusetts. Apparently it's going to snow on Tuesday, when it's going to be the high of 55 and the low of 33. I didn't know that it could snow in degrees above freezing, but hey, I'm just a 25-year-old with a laptop. Who am I, Oh man.
Yeah. It's crazy.
But I think we're going to wrap this up. It was good having you on, Ark, and we're definitely going to have to do this again in the near future before, we quite possibly can't do this again.
Yeah, really, man. Really. We never know what's going to happen tomorrow, but, just like I was saying, trust in the Lord, lean on him for our understanding, and We have nothing to fear.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself, brother. Couldn't say it better myself. But yeah, I appreciate you taking time out of your day, almost 3 hours. And yeah, good to have you on, and definitely looking forward to another rerun of this, brother. No doubt.
Cool. Appreciate it, man. God bless. Thank you guys for all listening. And if you want to check out the music, just go to DestinyLab.com. We've got 3 CDs currently available. You get 3 CDs for $25, and we got a 4th CD we're hoping to release here in May, June time.
That's
So
awesome. That's awesome. And by the way, you kept talking about the podcast you do with your brother, and those are some badass podcasts. So if you want to learn a couple of things, guys, definitely go to his channel, go to the playlist, and it's the first or the second playlist right there, and just hit play, let them play through. It's about 2 days of listening, and you're gonna be like, whoa.
Yeah, we go into a lot of deep subjects. If you guys want to learn more about this kind of stuff, and and we're just finished episode number 29, so we're going to start doing more of those as well. So
awesome. Good stuff. But all right, we're going to get on out of here, guys. Yeah, God bless. Thanks for coming. And I'm just going to say hi to the chat. So if you want to, you can dip now, or you can hang around because I'm going to put on Access Denied after this. So
okay, cool. No, I'll just dip out, and appreciate you having me on, man.
All right, sounds good, brother. God bless.
Later. God bless.
All right, guys, that was Ark from DestinyLab. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please like, share, and subscribe. The link to his channel is in the description, so click that and get your groove on, man. Get your good tunes, your spiritual tunes, your God-inspired music, not this demonic, bass-ridden, this stuff that makes you have headaches while you listen to it. You don't want to be listening to that stuff. Nothing like that. But we got Larryology was here in the chat. Thanks for coming. AJ Blunt, Spirit Sealed, thanks for coming. Anthony Dixon, CJ, True Seeker 69, how you doing? Thanks for coming. Thanks for I think you're live right now, so thanks for bouncing back and forth. Cool. Who else was here in the chat? Eric Blairs, what's up, brother? What's going on? System Failure, what's up, bro? This guy's crazy. If you haven't seen his channel, go on a live stream with him. He's nuts. I love it. Haha, I love it. Who else we got here in the chat? Looks like a lot of repeaters. That's okay. Oh, Mitchell McNeely, I didn't even see you there, brother. What's going on? My doll face, what's up? Absolutely. The man, the myth, the legend. Ark right there. What's going on, brother? Evan, Merchant of Wokeness. What's going on, brother? What's up? That looks like everyone. Sandman. What's going on, brother? Good to see you. But yeah, it looks like everyone here in the chat. I'm going to dip on out of here. I'm going to put on one of my favorite songs. Actually, let me rephrase that. I'm going to put on my favorite song by DestinyLab. This is Access Denied. This is pretty badass. And if this doesn't turn you up and get you going, I don't know what will. But I'm out of here, guys. Like, share, and subscribe. Most importantly, God bless.